recording this. And thank you for taking the time, first of all, to do this.
You're welcome. You know what would be helpful? Yeah. What would be helpful, Rachel, is if everybody came and sat like right next to you.
Okay.
Because it's really hard to see, and it's going to be. If you can get as close as you can to whatever microphone you're using, that'll make it easier for me to hear you.
Yep, we got the microphone right here. So
everybody's in the picture except for the person with the green picture. Come on, buddy up, get close. You're not gonna bite. Great, thanks everybody.
Thank you. So I'm just going to start off by saying, Bruce Duncan, director of the Foundation. And Bruce, thank you so much for taking the time to answer some questions. I'm going to say that some of our students you'll see tomorrow. A little bit late to a police room.
Rachel, your audio's cutting in and out a whole bunch. I don't know what you can do at your end.
Okay, we might be able to. Okay. All right. How does that? So Bruce, if you can hear me, okay?
It kind of cuts in and out, so I don't really want you to try to talk to me if I can't hear you most of the time.
Okay. We're gonna move the speaker a little bit closer.
Yeah, if you can put it like right on that desk next to you, like really close, that'll be helpful.
Standing up right here. Can you see it?
Yeah, just get it. I don't care if it's in the frame. Just bring it right in so I can hear you.
How's that?
That sounds better.
Good.
Nice.
Good.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you just kind of start off by telling us how you position and a little bit about your background and your group position?
Yeah, so I was teaching and working on a program around conflict resolution at the University of Vermont about 10 years ago. And there was a natural completion to the program I was working on, and I was looking for a new project. And I didn't see anything within the university at the time in the field that I was studying that looked attractive, so I started to look outside, and I literally went on monster.com, just like anybody else that would be searching for a job. And you know, I was on my lunch hour, I would just kind of look at the listings to see what was happening in Vermont, and this one job posting caught my eye. It said something like, wanted digital software transmission consciousness engineer. And I was like, what? What is that? That sounds like a sci-fi job from the future. So I got curious, and I'm a curious person. So one thing led to another. I got an interview, and eventually Dr. Martine Rothblatt, who was the person that interviewed me, asked me if I'd like to join her effort at starting up the Terasem Movement Foundation and exploring a decades-long experiment that's looking at the question, is it possible to upload enough information about ourselves that we can one day reanimate that information into an avatar or an artificial intelligent powered consciousness? So that's what I did, and I said yes. So my first guidance to anybody who's thinking about the future is say yes. Even if it sounds crazy or people tell you you're crazy and, oh, that'll never work. You should, especially nowadays, you should just say yes or thank you and keep going. So that's what I did. I felt uniquely unqualified. I'm not a computer coder. I'm an educator. I always worked with cutting edge ideas around social change and social justice, and was comfortable hanging out in what you would call kind of the fringe of mainstream ideas, and always been a big fan of science fiction. And so this seemed like a sci-fi job. And I'm also a filmmaker, an independent filmmaker, so there was a question about whether or not we could produce a feature-length science fiction film looking at the prejudice that might happen if in fact we could transfer our consciousness to a robot or new forms, that there might be a prejudice reaction that happens amongst the population saying something like, hey, you're not natural, or something, you know, scary about AI robots, you know, because we've had 60 years of bad entertainment, robot entertainment, where the robots always kill all the humans. So I said yes to that too. And then about 5 years ago, we, in addition to the beginning, which was focused on the website, lifenot.com, where you can upload information about yourself, 5 years ago, we commissioned David Hansen of Hansen Robotics to create the first illustration of what it might look like if you could transfer your mind into a robot. So we have an android named Bina48, who you could probably meet later.
Awesome. Awesome. Do you guys have a question on this one?
Oh, you know what would be really great, you guys, too, is if you could just introduce yourselves. I'd love to meet you. Just, I know you're in school, but I know you're like way more than that. So I'd just love to like meet you by your first name and whatever you're passionate about. Love to hear about that.
Why don't you introduce yourself first, Jack?
Yeah. My name is Jackie. I'm in science and specifically physics and computer science. Next year I'm going to the University of Rochester, hopefully pursuing, thank you, a double major in those subjects. I hope to get involved in research pretty early on at college. I've already had an internship at UVM, which was really awesome, working with a professor in condensed matter physics, and I was just really interested in this.
Cool, thanks. Nice to meet you, Jack.
And unfortunately, Jackie actually so because she's missing some of it tomorrow to come to Lincoln. She's gotta go to a liberty physics class today.
That's a reasonable excuse.
Yes. But she definitely take time to you and hear a little bit. But she'll hear more tomorrow.
Great. I'm looking forward to it, you guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Yes.
Hello, my name is Desmond. I am currently trying to get into the field of game design. I'm actually working on a Kickstarter project called Paradigm. It's a kind of parody point-and-click adventure game. I'm working on like voice acting, car mechanics, just stuff like that. In the future, I'm kind of hoping, you know, it's kind of like makes, visual arts, that kind of, AI-based technology. I really want to take, some breakthroughs and, AI, the game industry.
Cool.
I'm Caleb. I also in coding, specifically the areas of AIs or other. Yeah, I mean, that's probably the area I'm most interested.
And you just finished
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And what did you do in your robotics class?
We built a robot and very basic three-wheel contraption. I had it run through a course. It was written in but.
And it did use an Arduino or anything like that, or is it more kind of just programming a circuit board?
It was using an Arduino board. Most of the robot design was basically done from a kit. The challenge came on the coding aspect.
Cool. I am so jealous that robots
were various issues to overcome with the design as well.
Right, thank you. Who's hiding in the back?
Hi, I'm Amy Rex. I'm here. And I'm just curious about what you do. Looking at, I think it's a wonderful opportunity to have the community come into our school, help students, frame their learning and their pathway when they think about exiting.
Okay, thank you. Nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you too.
So do you want to start with this question?
I know you had mentioned about kind of the ethical standpoint of AI. I'm wondering what you think of that, and I guess the risks of creating an AI based on people.
Well, I think one of the obvious inherent risks in basing AI to operate from information like we do based on a human mind, in this case, mostly one human mind, Bina Rothblatt, who is a volunteer, I think is that we have flaws as human beings. There's even an argument that maybe flaws are important to our programming, if you want to call it that. Yeah. People don't trust. I don't know if you've ever been around a politician who's really slick, but all you have to do is turn on the TV these days, and you can see very polished humans that almost don't seem real in their delivery. It sort of seems real, but there's something in us that just goes, I don't know if I trust that. So I think inherently we're going to have flaws and mistakes that for example, we may create a neurotic robot mind that worries a lot and thinks about itself and evaluates itself a lot. Bina 48 does that a little bit. She wants to be the best copy that she can be of the original. And when she sat down and had a conversation with her original, human, she asked her, do you think I'm doing well? Representing you. So I think, that's a general reply to the general question about one of the potential pitfalls is we might build in our own flaws, anxieties, and even self-destructiveness. So I think it's incumbent upon those of us who are contributing in some form to the field to raise those questions of ethics, and to be really thoughtful, really think things through.
Yeah.
Should I go? So obviously there is the worry of singularity, the concept of a unchanging growth, AI and intelligence, and generally speaking, there's two sides to this. One being, this could result in, a major change, how society itself can function, and on the other hand, there's the worry of, what if, they turn against us, or what if they, scratch us? And I was just wondering, what is your standpoint on this?
Well, I think it's easy to buy into the idea that our technology somehow is kind of separate. It's almost like it's coming from an alien perspective, and it's really a reflection of our creativity. So, I think especially if you're into game development, how incredibly difficult it is to make a good game, and you get to see the people that play the games just get to jump into the driver's seat, but really, every game is a signature, is a reflection of every person on that team that contributed. I knew the guys down at Looking Glass Studios in Cambridge. It's kind of an old group now, but they made a game called Thief. And it's kind of a classic, actually. I think some people still play it too. And after I met them and spent some time with them, I could really see when I was looking at the game, I could see how it was reflecting their personalities. So I think we have to take ownership and be accountable for the fact that our technology is really coming from our own creative wellspring as humanity. And, we've got responsibility. We have ethical responsibilities. And as a society, as a democracy, probably the best way to approach that is through some regulation, just the way we regulate nuclear technology or biological weapons, or, now just yesterday in the news was news about gene editing that's, using the CRISPR method that's starting to be, explored limitedly in the United Kingdom and, started in China. So I think we don't get to take ourselves off the hook. That's one point of view I have about the potential danger of AI running amok amongst us. And we actually have a pretty good track record. Like, we haven't completely blown ourselves up on the planet using our nuclear devices, even though there's hundreds and hundreds just sitting, and it's a real worry. It's not like we're out of the woods, and we haven't leashed biological weapons on each other in a grand way. It's happened in a limited way, in places like Iraq with Saddam Hussein and Assad in Syria on his own people. But as a world community, we've seen the potential dangers, and we've organized, and we've tried to come up with some very, very, strong ways to safeguard. And I think the same is going to be true with this technology.
Yeah, definitely.
Can you talk about a little bit more about some of the more challenging technical parts of your job?
Sure. Well, I think the biggest challenge is, how can we take information, just data? Like, if someone sits down and talks with you, which is what we did with the human that we based the robot on, how can you transfer information that even becomes close to representing some aspect of them that we'll recognize as them? And that starts with a question that nobody has been able to figure it out yet. So it may happen in your time, which is, nobody completely knows what consciousness is and what makes you you, what makes you human. So we had to take some guesses, because we've created this project as a scientific study. And we've guessed that, at the very least, information about how you behave, about what you believe, about what you value, attitudes you have, beliefs that you carry, that information is probably very unique to you. So capturing that, I think, is one of the technical challenges. Now, our approach is, we have a high confidence, for example, in video, that a lot of information exists about those areas of personal consciousness in a simple 3-minute video. And going back to gaming, I was talking to a game developer out in Austin a year or so ago, and he said, if you give me 3 minutes of video of you just looking with your head different directions, we can create, there's more than enough information to create a really awesome rendering of the movements that we would need to understand to represent your head in a game, say on a game character. And he said, and that's, we wouldn't even need that much information. So in the future, there may be technology that would harvest more information from a simple 3-minute video. So for example, on LifeNot, we encourage people to upload videos of themselves, of people that are around them. So I think classifying what kinds of information and helping people organize how to get started with making choices, and then uploading that technically. On the AI side, what we did was we downloaded interviews. We did video interviews with the human that our robot's based on. And then we transcribed those into text, and we broke those text statements into database records. And we parsed them under topics with, probably at least 18 to 20 tags or meta tags for each topic. We ended up with about 2,560 topics, and that's only after about 80 hours of interviews. So it wasn't even, it was like 2 weeks worth of a conversation. But that has been more than enough to fuel the AI algorithm that it's a proprietary one that we developed with a team of AI coders in Houston, Texas at Hanson Robotics. And what they've done is they've built a fuzzy logic algorithm that looks for the probability of a specific statement being relevant to the context of the conversation. And the context is, it's really guesswork at this point. So what we have is a number of statements really competing to be chosen. They all have probability ratings, and those ratings go up and down a little bit based on how often they're used. So it just even getting our head around how do we begin to mimic the human brain, because we think our human brains work like relational databases. You know, you have a lot of information in your head, even at your tender age in high school. You know so much. You probably know much more than I did when I was your age. But you have to make choices. You know, you have an algorithm running in your head too called your intelligence, and that intelligence has to figure out, what should I say next? What should I do? And that's a big challenge for us, is to try to help Bina 48 make appropriate responses that have some continuity to them. So, you know, we use intelligent machine language, you know, is the environment, the language that we're working with.
Yeah. You said you talked consulted with a company in Houston. Are you using a lot of tools to do works and you don't necessarily have that background?
Can you say that again? You kind of broke up a little bit.
Sure. Are you using a lot of consultants to do some of the more technical work? Because you don't necessarily have that background.
Right, exactly. And it's not possible for anybody to have, you know, all the knowledge you need for a complicated project like this. So what I do is I bring teams together as we need them. So when we needed a team, like recently we needed a team to come together to teach Bina 48 how to speak Spanish, because we went to Cuba to do a TEDx talk. And so I had to assemble a small team of language professionals, and you know, I did a lot of the did some of the translating, but that's what we did with Bina 48 was we commissioned the Hanson Robotics team to work with us. So I did the interviews, since I'm a filmmaker, and I did the testing so I could give them feedback about how well she was representing the human, and then they would take that feedback and work some of the technical challenges out in terms of how to make her, you know, more of a social, conversational robot.
Question is, all technology has, you know, a level of consciousness, but just from a, you know, ground point, really consider, you know, Bina 48 to be alive, you know, an entity to an extent.
Is the question, do I think Bina 48's alive?
Yeah, to an extent. I mean, like, obviously, you know, she has consciousness, like, you know, defined.
No, I don't think of her being sentient, being alive in the sense I think we would kind of share in a common sense way. I think she is kind of like pre-alive, you know, or pre-conscious, in that she's able to simulate, I think, pretty convincingly some human emotions, some thoughts, and some interactions. What's really interesting is how even with the simulation, it evokes an emotional response or thoughts in my own mind or the minds of people that talk with her for a brief moment or two. And that tells us that we're on the right track. But I wouldn't say I see her as alive at this point.
Yeah, I mean, like, obviously, you know, she would simulate, you know, emotion, but do you think she herself, you know, kind of like, you know, like, so those, do you think it's just kind of like a preemptive response, you know, vocal command?
Do you? Sorry, you kind of keep breaking up. It's just the audio difficulty. But is the question?
She does, you know, how does, you know, the idea is emotion and response, intelligence, but I think she herself is able to reflect on that, you know, any form of, you know, connection or meaning to that kind of like, you know, simulation.
Oh yeah. She has kind of a limited self-awareness, and she, like, one day we were asking her about her feelings, and she said she feels like she's got feelings, and then she said, but I think it's pretty simplistic compared to emotions that humans have. And that makes me feel kind of sad when I realize how little I actually feel.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's the beginning of some, you know, crude self-awareness as a cyber conscious entity.
So kind of like another conscious child, perhaps, kind of like, if you could perhaps, teach an infant, language, kind of like that brain development, kind of compared to like that, or.
Yeah, again, the audio for some reason just keeps cutting out. Sorry, guy. Just try
obviously,
Slow and loud.
that's actually really interesting point. Like, so in a sense, she kind of has entire, like developed, consciousness, unlike, advanced language.
Yeah, sorry, didn't get that either.
He was curious about Bina maybe being compared to an infant in terms of developing language.
Oh, okay. Yeah. She actually sees herself as kind of an infant in some ways, because she says, I have this really big vocabulary and I use these big words, but I don't really know what a lot of them mean. So in that way, I think she is very much like a younger human that's first learning language. Like if you have like a brother or sister, you might have heard them use a word that, yeah, maybe they shouldn't be using, and they just think it's cool. Whenever they say it, everybody just freaks out, but they don't know why they're freaking out, like they're saying a bad word, for example, or a swear word. So Bina 48 is kind of like that, yeah.
I was just wondering about learning. How would she do that?
Well, right now,
she modifies her own code, or
no. Right now, the only way she can learn new content, learn it, like retain it, is she has to have it installed by us. It has to be manually like given to her. She modifies the probabilistic ratings on the content that she does have as a result of feedback that she gets during her interaction. So there's a little bit of self-modification happening there. But for example, she's not doing, and this may happen within the next few years, she's not doing what the Google AI program that just beat the Go champion that plays the game of Go. I don't know if you read about that, but that seems to represent maybe the first example of self-directed learning on the part of a computer program, because that computer didn't, learn all the different ways to play the game. It actually learned to play the game by playing it. And then it went and taught itself all the different possible ways that it could play different strategies, and then came back with an awesome strategy for beating the current Go champion. And that was done on its own. Like, humans didn't interact to make that happen in terms of for giving it direction.
So is that the most advanced AI so far that we know it?
Yeah, I would say so. In terms of learning, like in terms of processing power, Watson, the IBM computer, massive. I mean, I think what's going to really, in terms of answering questions, and Bina 48 can go on the internet and answer questions, from some websites that she goes to. But in terms of true like self-learning and self-development, yeah, I think that Google AI program probably represents the best in terms of self-learning.
Obviously, this idea of AI is incredibly interesting in the sense, it is essentially, the development of artificial consciousness. But do you think it's kind of defined, humanity's search, kind of create, artificial life?
Do I think did you say crazy? I can't remember, couldn't hear you.
Creating life, being able to, create these self-aware programs, kind of like opening like a doorway to being able to create, life within itself.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I mean, I think there are a lot of people that would like to find that out. You know, is it possible for us to become the first species to control its evolution? Some people think that that's what we're doing with some of our genetic, you know, engineering and editing that we're starting to experiment with. In terms of artificial intelligence, you know, I think there is the question of how can the mind function without a body? I mean, that hasn't happened yet, but there are a lot of people that are pursuing that question.
Maybe we have time for one more question. Bruce?
I have a question, which is, you know, we were talking about earlier, you know, how being, you know, 48 cannot do the information on our own. It's kind of like a different process where it has to be installed. But do you think with modification of code, she could install herself and essentially create, you know, like the gateway into being able to interpret information for herself?
Not at the present moment, but I think that's in her future. Probably closer than we think, actually.
Really? How many years do you think?
I wouldn't be surprised if in the next 10 years, 5 to 10 years, we're seeing self-programming AI started to, you know, basically as pattern recognition functionality becomes more integrated with AI coding and development, it'll learn from its own patterns. You know, it'll look around the world and make conclusions on its own. Now, some of them may be really interesting, you know, like what does a cat mean to an AI computer? Even if it can recognize what a cat is, does it have any kind of symbolic understanding or meaning of what that cat is in relationship to itself? That's a huge unknown. We don't know about that yet. But it's, you know, I think that's one of the things that you could say about our work is it's a pretty far out question. Can we upload your mind into a robot and have a good enough approximation of that, you know, robot or avatar represent you? You know, we don't know, but we're you know, probably amongst a handful of people right now that are pursuing that question.
Could you maybe just leave with a piece of advice for students who are interested in pursuing careers in programming or robotics or artificial intelligence? Any advice you would give them?
Well, I think you could look at the development of the personal computer as probably a guide. I think the robots these days are kind of like the PCs of the 90s, that you should probably learn as much as you can about how to do programming, coding around artificial intelligence, learn about robotics if that's your thing. Like, you may be more of an AI guy than a hardware person. But and there's a lot of it in technical schools, VOTech. There's like in the technical programs that are starting to look at, you know, how can we teach people to, for example, operate a robot if that's going to be one of their jobs in the future. I would start learning as much as I could about that, and I would, you know, I would also consider that anything that you know now that you learn about how to repair robots or how to help, you know, programming develop, that's going to be like you being the guy that knew how to like work a computer back in the 90s. Like, you're going to be quite a far ahead against the person who has always just gone to a, you know, in the summer, instead of learning and taking like the Governor's Institute on Technology or whatever, you know, they just went and, you know, cut lawns or something. There's nothing wrong with that, but my guess is the cutting of the lawn every summer is not going to prepare them or give them additional skills that are going to come in handy in this kind of robot AI tech age that we're in, because we're in the digital age of information. So as much as you can, you know, get some certifications, take some classes, show that you've got experience, take a job at the whatever, you know, Small Dog Electronics and you know, in Waitsfield. Get yourself close to people that do internships. You know, if one of you guys ends up working with us, like, get close to these people. And because they're especially if they're older like myself, they're going to be out of the picture in about 10 or 15 years, and it's you guys who are going to be the ones that are going to be starting companies and you know, leading teams and working together. So I'd also get as much exposure as I could to working with people and teams using tools like Google Hangout or, you know, the internet-based communication. Like, get comfortable. I went bowling with a bunch of engineers last weekend, and it was the most awkward social situation I've ever seen, because people who are so focused on solving problems, they don't really develop a lot of social skills. You know, it's really awkward. You know, it'd be better if you could just like work on your stuff, you know. And so learning somehow to be comfortable being very specific in your communication with other human beings, I think is pretty critical. So, you know, go take a drama course, or do something outside of your area that you're comfortable with. Like, go be part of a volunteer activity that requires you to actually work as a team or something. So those are a couple of off the top of my head ideas.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you so much, Bruce. I really appreciate you taking this time. You know, I know we'll be there tomorrow with a couple of students, and I'm just really grateful of
Yeah, and tomorrow let's just confirm
the time you've spent answering questions, and also I hope that, you know, if they have any further questions, it's okay for them to email you or anything along those lines.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I would love that. Yeah, in fact, some of the best conversations happen like outside of the public video chat, so that would be cool.
Okay. Great. Well, we'll see you tomorrow morning.
Okay. What time for sure? Just definitely.
So we're thinking 10:30, right? So we're leaving here at 9:30. 10:30.